Oh, come on, Ben, buy a microphone. I can barely hear you. Why are you taking such long pauses? Get to the point. What was this filmed on? A toaster? My goodness. Did you ever wish you could just go back in time and sort out some things that made you look absolutely daft? Well, this week we'll be looking at a game that allows you to do just that, although you'll probably be focusing on much more important things in your own silly life, Ben. Come on. Time Stories brings together... Sorry, there's actually some full stops in there. T.I.M.E Stories... Yeah, we'll just call it Time Stories from now on. Brings together a team of preferably 4 agents and makes them all mini Doctor Who's, jumping through time and space, trying to stop paradoxes from happening and rifts from splitting open reality and all sorts of other temporal-based malarkey. Time Stories is in addition to the legion of games coming out right now, declaring themselves as deep and immersive narrative experiences with a whole host of spoiler alerts to boot. And whilst that's enough to get the heart tingling of any red-blooded player, it's an absolute nightmare for anyone trying to review the thing, because even though I've got this huge deck of cards right here that I really want to show you, I can only realistically show you the first set of cards that you encounter when you enter the game without spoiling the experience for you. I can't even show you the back of them. So just to be clear, no story spoilers within this review. Whilst each case in Time Stories may not be consistent in period, one thing you can guarantee is everyone will come with a very hefty deck of locations that will brighten up the rather immaculate board you're given to start off with. A location is formed from several cards put together in a panorama for the team to have a gander at. Upon arriving at a location, players may explore certain sections of it by placing pawns on their relevant spaces. In that moment, players take a closer look at the area they pick by having a look at the back of the card they chose. But whilst they can explain what's going on, they can't read the card word for word. They have to paraphrase it for everyone else, which means you kind of have these really odd scenarios like this. Yeah, there's nothing interesting on here. Oh, no. Oh, well, an interesting tidbit though. These aren't mushrooms, they're actually quite comfy stools. Guys, I'm kind of dying over here. Flippin' heck. Sorry. A card may have valuable information on it. A card may just be a huge waste of time. Or a card might have a confrontation on it that you have to resolve with dice. Tests come with the number of shields the agents have to deplete and revolve around one certain attribute. Each agent confronting the issue matches up the attribute and rolls a number of dice depending on the number next to the attribute on their character card. If any hits are rolled, then that number of shields are taken away. If after rolling there are any skull shields or skulls on dice, then you have to add those up, compare them to your resistance, and if it's greater than that, you take some damage. As you progress, you may unlock items which can feature just general things that you can use throughout your campaign in order to make your life easier, to tasty narrative tidbits that could certainly help your investigation. You also might get these state tokens, which are pretty much just universally shapes and colours. They don't look that interesting, but they represent knowledge that your characters are building throughout your case. And they open up these branching paths almost. You can't unlock certain cards without having these on hand. And then when you realise what they represent in the grand scheme of things, you can't help but jump out of your character for a moment and just think, this is really clever stuff. But hang on a minute, why would you split up and risk miscommunication when you can just huddle up like a bunch of PI penguins scrutinising the details on every card, one card at a time? Well, agents, you're on the clock. At the beginning of a case, players are given a set amount of temporal units to play with. If players move to a different space or use an action, it costs 1 temporal unit. If the whole team decides to move location completely, they have to roll the time captain die and spend the amount of TU shown on it. If you ever run out of TU, then everything in a case resets itself and you have to start all over again. Items go back to where you found them, you're kicked back to where you started the entire case. And any relationships that you built with NPCs, any alterations you made to the environment, represented by state tokens, are put back because they never happened. Time Stories always gives you this huge puzzle to unravel, but solving it isn't the only thing you have to do. You have to tidy it up, find the fastest route to victory that's also the most straightforward. To emphasise that, I probably should have reviewed more of the case that actually comes with the game than its mechanics themselves. I kind of regret that. If only we could go back. Don't rewind the video. I'm about to do a little joke, and I hope it works. So if you're ready for this, kind of underwhelming. Time Stories 1921. Asylum casts preferably 4 agents as receptacles institutionalised in a psychiatric hospital in Paris. Your job is to prevent a temporal rift occurring. Their job? Just make it through the day. I mean, something's a bit off here. In Asylum, players jump into the bodies of one of 8 patients that haven't exactly been designed in the most tasteful of ways, but all come with their own strengths and weaknesses. If the characters you're playing as don't give you the heebie-jeebies, then the atmosphere certainly will. The artwork nails the time period this is set in, and whilst it's not all dark and depraved, there is something a little bit odd, a little bit uncanny about all the areas that you choose to explore, and this extends into gameplay. As soon as you enter, you start hearing the murmurings of all the inhabitants of the asylum, and whilst these might just be complete ramblings, everyone speaks in riddles. Might be a little bit useful later on in the case. It's warming your brain up, setting you up for grander puzzles that might appear later on in the case, and my goodness, those grander puzzles, they're some of the best cooperative experiences I've had in a game ever. At one point we came across a puzzle that really required us to stand back and think hard for a long while, and the beautiful thing about it was the fact that even though we all had our own strengths and weaknesses and different ways of thinking, we all had something to contribute to finding the solution to that puzzle. We all had different ideas that were completely relevant in the grand scheme of things. It was like watching a bomb defusal scene in an action film. We were so in sync and just firing off lines one after the other that fitted perfectly, so that when we did find the solution at exactly the same time, we were ecstatic that we found that on our own backs. It felt so good, and that was the point where I went, this is a fantastic game. And then we came across an area which involved a lot of these. At one point we found ourselves in a glorified shield factory, and our only way to get through it was to use these. And wherever we went, we were just rolling dice, conflict after conflict. It was almost never ending, but we stuck with it because we thought, well, if we have to go through all this, then there must be something really cool at the end. There wasn't. There was pretty much just a sign saying, nah, just turn back around. And I'm not annoyed by that because it was a huge waste of TU. I'm not annoyed by that because it was a red herring. I'm annoyed by it because it was a really boring way of wasting our time. And it sticks out like a sore thumb, a huge pacing issue in a game which derives such unbelievable enjoyment from conflict resolution, where you have to use your own brain, not flipping dice. Asylum shows that T.I.M.E Stories is a game with 2 halves. On one side you got the rather meh-worthy event resolution tied down by dice rolls, taking a leaf out the eldritch horror book of downing hefty amounts of narrative exposition in a bid to make the rather uninspired mechanic a lot easier to swallow, and that's okay in small doses. On the other side, you can see this drawing inspiration from Sherlock Holmes' Consulting Detective. You can see them trying to find what makes that game so enjoyable and turning all the mechanics you find in it into a graphic novel. And it's hard not to be enthralled by that. As a boring adult, there is one practical point I have to make though, and it's based all around this. There's supposed to be money in there. So Asylum took us 4 to 5 hours to complete, and I'm not entirely sure we're going to play it again. Not because of the quality of work that's been put into it, but rather the fact that, well, most of the enjoyment you get from T.I.M.E Stories is through exploration and discovery. And now that all the solutions are burnt into our brains because we've assigned our own personal stories and memories to them all, we blitz through another run through. It just wouldn't be that entertaining. New cases are coming out and have come out, but are 20 quid a pop, which means that T.I.M.E Stories lies in this a weird dissonance of investment, which is easy to justify for some but hard to justify for others. If you're going to pile your own money into this, it's going to get expensive rather quickly, and you're not getting a lot of gameplay for what you're paying for. What our group does, however, is puts in a $5 every time a new case comes out, and that's cheaper than a cinema and infinitely more enjoyable, and suddenly it just becomes a must-buy for what you're paying for. So yeah, if you can do that, yes, go for it, do it. Boring practical things like money aside, it's hard not to get excited about T.I.M.E Stories. The momentous occasions that occurred in the first scenario overshadow some of its slightly duller ones. As a system, this has a lot of potential. The problem I have, maybe, is with pacing, and that comes on a case-by-case basis. Hello? Hey, hey, are you... What's happened to my hair? You had a haircut. It's winter. I don't have my hair cut in winter. Hey, but you look like a shambles. Listen, wasn't I meant to be reviewing the Marcy case today? No, we're still on the core game right here. Bugger, I came to the wrong place. When am I meant to review it? Program whatever it is you have to 1st of February. All right, cheers. Well, I'll leave you to it because what you're doing is quite important. Okay. This isn't going to cause some sort of Paradox, is it? Oh, no, don't worry about that. We're technically not the same anymore because of the... Oh, because of the hair. There we go, now you got it. Okay, well, I hope I don't see you again. Right, okay. I would love to recommend Time Stories to you right now, but I can't just yet. It needs that one case that truly understands the game's strengths and pushes all of those forwards to unlock the potential within this box. And Asylum, as good a case as it is, it's more of a really solid vertical slice of all the gameplay you'll find rather than a strong standalone formula, especially as you can only really play it once. Next week we'll be looking at the Marty case, and I pray that will be what sells this game for you. If he can get his flipping dates right. I mean, jeez, what an idiot.